I want to give a shout out to all my patrons first. Thank you so much to my Bibliosprand, Bibliohalers, Bibliomancers, and my new Bibliomancers, Terry and Arlis. Thank you so much for giving the extra support to my hobby and passion. Hi everyone, Petrik here. In today's video, I will be sharing my thoughts on Mother of Learning Arc 1 by Nobody103 or Domagoj Kurmak. Yes, I have finally started reading Mother of Learning. This is one of my priority series that I want to start and finish this year, and I am glad that I have finally started reading this series. And I think Mother of Learning Arc 1 was a marvelous start to a time loop fantasy series. It was just so damn enjoyable to me. So, time loop or time travel in the fantasy genre is incredibly hard to find, especially the one that is done right. And do not take this as a criticism of the genre. Time travel or time loop is hard to do right in the first place, and you are more likely to find its existence in sci-fi than fantasy. Until today, to my recollection, the Lycaeus trilogy by James Islington is the only series of epic fantasy novels where I felt the time travel elements were integrated cleverly. Remembering how much I love time travel stories executed wonderfully like in the Lycaeus trilogy or Steins Gate anime and more, I have made it clear that I perpetually search for a time travel story done right in fantasy. And that's how I stumbled upon Mother of Learning by Nobody103. Originally published as a web novel series, and if we are still counting it as one, then this indeed would mean the first web novel series that I am reading. But the 3 story arcs in Mother of Learning have now been re-edited and republished by Wraithmarked Creative, with Volume 4, which will be the final volume of the entire series, published next month in April. The hardcover of the first arc, this one, the one that I bought from Wraithmarked Creative, is the edition that I am reading and reviewing. I think you can still read the entire series for free on Royal Road, but I'm going to assume that this edition is superior not only in its content but also in its exterior. Additionally, this beautiful hardcover edition comes with a cover art by Mansik Young, fully colored end papers by Daniel Kamarudin and Asur Misowa, plus a detailed map of Altazia by Soraya Corcoran. You will see these pictures inside this review. You will see these end papers and map in today's video, and I just want to say that the printing quality and the paper quality of the book, both of them are top-notch, and I highly enjoyed reading the first volume of Mother of Learning. Zorian Kaczynski is a teenage mage of humble birth and slightly above average skill, attending his 3rd year of education at Kyoria's Magical Academy. On the eve of Kyoria's annual summer festival, a life-changing event transpired, and now Zorian is caught in a time loop. He is brought back to the day at the beginning of the month when he's about to take the train to the academy, and he is doomed or blessed to repeat it every time he reaches the day of the annual summer festival. It is a never-ending month for Zorian, and as he tries his best to find a way to escape the time loop, he is taking advantage of his situation to advance his skill and knowledge as a mage. This is essentially the premise of Mother of Learning. It is a simple concept integrated brilliantly into the narrative. Think of it as Harry Potter meets All You Need Is Kill, or maybe Recursion by Blake Crouch. I strongly urge readers who want to start reading this series for the first time to give it probably about 100 until 200 pages before really judging whether the book or the series will be suitable for you or not. This is due to multiple reasons. As far as I know, Mother of Learning is one big series divided into 4 volumes. This review you are watching right now is a review of only the first story arc, the first volume, so I think that's about a quarter of the entire series. I think it is fair to give it at least 100 until 200 pages of this 2,500 pages long series. That's about 784,000 words long series before deciding to drop it or continue with it. But more importantly, this is also because I think from my perspective, the first 100 or 200 pages of the book felt like a prelude to the entire series. So the main story of Mother of Learning did not begin until we reached that point. Whether you are a fan of time loop or time travel in the fantasy genre, I think Mother of Learning is worth the read if you are a fan of magic school in fantasy. And I am a huge fan of coming-of-age fantasy and magic or battle school. There are some of my favorite tropes to read in the fantasy genre. Due to the time loop setting and premise of the series, Mother of Learning Arc 1 understandably means the majority of the narrative in this book takes place in the Kyoria Magical Academy. You will spend a lot of time reading Zorian advances his various skills and magic in multiple variations at the academy while he seeks a way out of the time loop. Unfortunately, I have no preference for hard or soft magic system. Both can be superbly written depending on the context of the series, and this book is an example of making magic learning fun to read. Even when the story is 1 month repeated in a time loop, it was utterly impressive how Cormac keeps the stakes, pacing, revelations, and development refreshing and engaging. It is not exclusive to plotting but to characters as well. There aren't many notably great characters yet in Mother of Learning Arc 1, and I know I've read only the first volume and this is relatively a small fraction of the entire series, so this is not a big issue. But just comparing Zorian Kaczynski's action and behaviors from how he started in the series compared to how he acted at the conclusion of Mother of Learning Arc 1 already felt like a different person in a good way. Zorian started off incredibly unlikable. He was a constantly angry teenager who has minimal empathy for other people. This is why I feel it is necessary to read 200 pages of the book first. Not only readers get to see the incredible potential of the plotting and concept laid out by the author, but they can also confirm the existence of the gradual development in Zorian's character and behavior. The plot was always interesting to me, but Zorian, in my opinion, did not become a likable character or character I felt invested in until I reached the second half of the first volume. I had so much fun reading Mother of Learning Arc 1, and I do believe the prose is partly responsible for it. If you know my reading taste, I am not fussy about prose. Whether it is simple prose or pulper prose, I appreciate this variety of storytelling styles in the fantasy genre. What matters to me more is the reading experience proceeds smoothly. Some readers call Sanderson's simple and accessible prose mediocre, and maybe it is according to their criteria or preference. There is nothing wrong with that, but I respectfully disagree. Sanderson's prose allows me to enjoy an epic fantasy series without feeling overwhelmed by the prose. I feel like I can read Sanderson's books anytime I want despite my reading mood. Unlike, let's say, Steven Erikson's Malazan Book of the Fallen. Malazan Book of the Fallen is one of my favorite series of all time, but I need to be in the correct reading mood or headspace before I read it, even more so on reread. Why am I going on a tangent here? To emphasize Cormac's prose, which leans more towards Sanderson's style than Erikson's, just as a comparison. And I loved it. I honestly cannot imagine this book with info dumps and many pages count spent on lore and learning the magic being this addictive to read if it was written in a heavier style prose like Steven Erikson or Mark Lawrence. However, these praises did not mean I surmised Mother of Learning Arc 1 as a completely magnificent book. There were a few noticeable issues, for example, the way the world building and lore were delivered. It was hard for my brain to register some passages because they were told in an info dump manner. In a way, many parts of the progression fantasy of the series and magic learning can be categorized as info dump as well, but they were still fun, entertaining, and engaging regardless of it. I cannot say the same for the lore and history of the world, which usually is one of my favorite parts of reading a fantasy series. But overall, this is not a big issue for me. I had overwhelmingly more fun reading Mother of Learning Arc 1 to consider this relatively slight boredom a big detraction to my reading experience. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of the story takes place in the Curia Magical Academy, and this factor can be a big issue if it is repeated throughout the rest of the series. But I have a good feeling we will get to explore more of the world in the remaining 2 story arcs. If you are a reader who loves reading magic school, coming-of-age fantasy, time travel, time loop, progression fantasy, or hard magic system, I imagine you will have a blast reading Mother of Learning Arc 1. I certainly did. I have mentioned several times now that Mother of Learning is one of my priority series to finish this year, and after that cliffhanger ending of Arc 1, I think I will begin Volume 2 really soon, at the latest next month. I will not lie, a part of me was worried about reading Mother of Learning. Do not get me wrong here, my anticipation was always there, but at the same time, plenty of comments or reviews have mentioned the writing is mediocre or the writing is not great as you can expect from a web novel. These made me quite apprehensive about the storytelling or writing quality I would get in Mother of Learning. But thankfully I did not listen to these comments. My fear is unfounded. The reality of reading it is better than my fear. Sure, Mother of Learning is often regarded as one of the most highly praised web novel out there, and the edition I read has been re-edited and republished by Wraithmarked Creative. However, I would not be able to tell this was a web novel if I did not know about the publication status before reading it. The interior and exterior quality of the book is about the same as all other fantasy books, all other great fantasy books that I've read. I would say it is more fun than many fantasy books I've read, and the quality, the printing quality of this hardcover edition is definitely better than most traditionally published books I own. A job truly well done to Domagoch Krumike and also Wraithmarked for writing and producing this hardcover edition. Mother of Learning Arc 1 is a great clean fantasy novel with accessible writing that gets more refined and detailed with more pages read. Plus, some fans of the series have mentioned that the first arc is the weakest of the entire series. This makes me incredibly excited to continue with the rest of the series. If this is still categorized as a web novel, and it is included as my first experience, well, I believe I have opened the gates to trying more web novels. On my list right now, I have Worm by John McCrae or Wildbow, which I will try to get to this year. And after that, I have a Practical Guide to Evil by Errata, and of course, The Wandering Inn by Pirate Abba to read. It will take me a while to read through all of this, but one series at a time. For now, repetition is the mother of learning, and I look forward to repeating this wonderful experience by reading Mother of Learning Arc 2 really soon, most likely next month. On a side note, read this book with caution if you have arachnophobia. That's all I will say about this. That's my review for Mother of Learning Arc 1. I really enjoyed this one. I think it was such a great start to a time loop fantasy series. I cannot wait to read the continuation, and as I said, I will read that in April. And if this still counts as my first time reading a web novel, I will say that it is super fun, just super fun. So yeah, that's it for me today. If you have read Mother of Learning, do let me know your thoughts on it. Do you like it? And if you haven't read Mother of Learning, do you plan to read it someday? As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.